Hello and welcome. Good morning. This is Saturday, the 26th of June, and the time is 11 a.m. Welcome to this morning's Bible study class. I'm so delighted and happy to be here with you once again this morning as we continue to observe the various covenants made in the Bible by God to his people. And in particular, we really want to get to the new covenant, which is we should be adhering to and observing. But without the appreciation of the old covenant and what is implied in us now abiding in Jesus, because he is now the law, he is the covenant, he is the propitiation of everything we're supposed to follow. It's in him. He brings back to our remembrance. His spirit's inside us. He guides us, etc. But last time we looked at Exodus chapter 21, and I believe we got as far down as verse 28 in our analysis, and we'll be continuing from there. But if you recalled, there was a bit of investigation I had to do on verse 7 and 8, which I will do. I will actually go through that with you today. But in any event, without further ado, I'm going to, before I start to pray, because I'm going to start praying in a minute, I'm going to just recap on the verses that we're observing or that are outstanding for us to observe and that we hoped would be covered during this Bible study. But just like last time, it may be the case that we need another couple of Bible studies to go through the rest of the items that we're observing. So it's Exodus chapters 19 to 24. We've done 19, we've done 20, and 21 we're now on. So we've got 22, 23, and 24, which you should get your Bibles ready at. And then we're going to proceed with 2 Samuel chapter 7. And then finally we'll be observing Jeremiah 31 to 31, verses 31 to 34, which basically outlines the new covenant. And then we shall be looking at the new covenant in detail as it pertains to various verses. So we now begin in prayer. Father God, what can I say? You are amazing. You are almighty. You deserve all the glory, all the honor, all the love, all the admiration, all the attention, all the praise, all the worship. You alone are worthy. Father, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, which guides us and comforts us. Father, be with us here today as we continue to read your word. May it bring life, light, much revelation, understanding to us as we read. Father, give us peace in our hearts, peace in our minds, full wisdom and understanding as to what you'd have to say to us today in your word as we get to know you more. Father, teach us your ways that we can identify you clearly in our lives and appreciate more the things that you give us. And we give thanks today, Father, for our health, for our strength, and for everything you've ever given us. In the name of Jesus, we pray this as you guide us through this study session. Amen. Okay, so starting at Exodus chapter 21, verses 7 to 8. I'll read them again and then I'll tell you my findings. And then we're going to go to Genesis 29, 24, 29, which is a cross-reference example that we can use. And we read, "And if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the maidservants do. If she please not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed to sell her into a strange nation. He shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. Okay. And the explanation for that is if a poor family could not afford the costs of a normal wedding, the father might sell his daughter to a rich man as his slave. For example, in the case, sorry, what that means is, sorry, as a secondary wife like Zilpah and Bilhah in Genesis 29, 24 and 29. As wives from poor families, they could face exploitation, which these laws aim to prevent. So if you look at Genesis chapter 29, verses 24 and 29, which we'll go through that example. So it's Genesis 29, verses 24 and 29. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, for an handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me, and did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And okay, that was sorry. So Zilpah was the maid, the secondary wife, basically to Leah, that he gave to Jacob. And obviously, I'm assuming Zilpah is the person that was from a poor family. And she was a servant, a slave. And then you see here in chapter 29, verse 29 of chapter 29, Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. Okay, and likewise the same is with Bilhah, obviously from a poor family. He didn't want them facing exploitation. So Laban was really reaping it in here for Jacob, wasn't he? He's really sort of using him a lot for taking on board for the one woman he really wanted, which was Rachel. He's kind of palmed off on him another 3, since he realizes how that basically magnifies the wealth of Jacob. If Laban thought that Jacob could afford 4 wives, that illustrates that Jacob was not a poor man. Okay, that's what that really symbolizes or proves, really. So he was a very rich man, Jacob, very wealthy, to be able to afford 4 wives. And remember, he had 12 sons, so that's a lot of children, and a lot of wealth was needed for those children. So yeah. Okay, so we're continuing now with Exodus chapter 21, verse 28 onwards. So if an ox gore a man or a woman, that they die, then the ox shall be surely stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quit. So we gathered that the owner of the ox would be responsible for the animal's behaviour, and therefore would be responsible for paying any compensation to the injured party. But if the ox were wont to push with his horn in time past, and it hath been testified to his owner, and he hath not kept him in, but that he have killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and his owner also shall be put to death. So if it was a warning that the ox, is not the first time this ox has done it, and it's now resulted in the ox, and the owner did nothing to restrain the ox, obviously, then the owner, as well as the animal, would be facing the death penalty. Not just the animal, but the owner for being irresponsible and letting that animal continue with its aggression. So if there be laid on him a sum of money, then he shall give for the ransom of his life whatsoever is laid upon him. Okay. That's an interesting point. If there be laid on him a sum of money, okay, then he shall give for the ransom of his life whatsoever is laid upon him. So, in other words, if somebody says, okay, you won't die, but we want some sort of compensation, financial compensation, then obviously he has to pay up. So he pays for his life and covers his life. So whether he have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to this judgment, shall it be done unto him. Okay, so obviously a daughter or a son, what have you, then I'm assuming that his family will be affected as a result. If the ox shall push a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. So he's got to pay money for slaves, if it's called a servant of someone else. And obviously the animal will be put to death, be stoned to death. And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or an ass fall therein, okay, the owner of the pit shall make it good, and give money unto the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his. Okay, so if you go around digging holes and you don't tell people that you dug a hole, or put a sign protecting that hole that you dug, or put enough barriers to say, obviously there's a pit here, and animals are pretty docile, aren't they? And they just wander around, and they could fall into that hole or pit. I mean, it might even be an animal, it could have been a child, really. Then obviously the dead animal falling into that pit belongs to the person whose pit is, but he's got to actually compensate for that. Compensate the owner by means of money. Pay the owner for the death of that animal. And if one man's ox hurt another's, then he die, then they shall sell the live ox and divide that money of it. And the dead ox also they shall divide. That's interesting, isn't it? Very, very interesting, that. So, yeah, if you have two animals are fighting, and one dies as a result, then what's implied here is that there's got to be a selling of the live ox and the money split between the two parties involved. Not just that, the dead animal has to be split between the two parties as well. Or if it be known that the ox have used to push in time past, and his owner have not kept him in, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead shall be his own. In other words, if the ox had been aggressive before, and the owner of the aggressive ox didn't do anything to restrain the animal from behaving that way, then the dead ox would be compensated by the death of the actual ox that was aggressive. Okay, we can see there's kind of a fairness in here with respect to this law. It's harsh, but there's a fairness there because of the effects that it's had on the injured party. So something had to be done to compensate with it. So moving on now to chapter 22. If a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief be found breaking up and be smitten, that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field, of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard, shall he make restitution. If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn, or the standing corn, or the field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man shall deliver unto his neighbour money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of a man's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges, to see whether he have put his hand unto his neighbour's goods. For all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, or for any manner of lost thing, which another challengeth to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbour. If a man deliver unto his neighbour an ass or an ox, or a sheep, or any beast to keep, and it die, or be hurt, or driven away, no man seeing it, then shall an oath of the Lord be between them both, that he have not put his hand unto his neighbour's goods, and own of it shall accept thereof, and he shall not make it good. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. If it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it from witness, and he shall not make good that which was torn. And if a man borrow out of his neighbour, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. But if the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good. If it be an hired thing, it came for his hire. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. He that sacrificeth unto any god, save unto the Lord, only he shall be utterly destroyed. Thou shalt neither vex a stranger, nor press him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor, by thee thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. If thou at all take thy neighbour's raiment, pledge thou shalt deliver it unto him by that the sun goeth down. For this is the covering only, it is his raiment for his skin, wherein shall he sleep. And it shall come to pass, when he crieth unto me, that I will hear, for I am gracious. Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of the ripe fruits and of thy liquors. The firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. Likewise shalt thou do with thine oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it me, and ye shall be holy men unto me. neither shall you eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field, ye shall cast it to the dogs. Okay, some strong words there and some strong instructions. Let's go through them. First of all, if a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it, or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Wow, that is a lot, isn't it? So you're basically restoring 5 times for the oxen and 4 times the sheep that's stolen. So that's interesting. And if a thief be found breaking up and be smitten that he died, there shall no blood be shed for him. So if you stole something and in the middle of your stealing something, you were hit and you got killed, there's going to be no recompense for you. So no one's going to be killing anybody for you. Apparently because you were doing the wrong thing in the first place. You were doing something you shouldn't have been doing, and you got injured in the act of doing something wrong. And it says there, if the sun be risen upon him, there shall be bloodshed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. Right. So if it's done in a day, then there will be bloodshed because somebody physically saw him and that he was there, and it's quite evident that it was done deliberately. But if he burgled obviously at night and he died at night and you didn't see that the theft was going on at night, then there's no restitution because he's in the middle of doing something wrong anyway in the first place. But what would be his punishment is his restitution. He's going to then be sold for his theft, personally. So it says here, verse 4, if the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall restore double. So in other words, if they catch him with the stolen goods, then whatever is found on him, he's going to pay double for what he's actually taken. So if a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard, shall he make restitution. So in other words, if he, if somebody causes a vineyard, in other words, a grapeyard or something with his crops and produce to be eaten, okay, by his beast, okay, and in other words, by his cattle or his whatever, he's gone and let them graze in there and eat the food or the grass, the fruit, etc. that's in the field, then he would have to make a restitution by giving the best of his vineyard and the best of his field to the owner of the original field that has been eaten down and trodden down. If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn or the standing corn or the field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. Okay, so if you cause a fire, okay, burning the stacks of corn, the person who actually started the fire will have to pay the penalty for that. And if a man shall deliver unto his neighbour money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, If the thief be found, let him pay double. Okay, so someone's looking after money for someone. Okay. And somebody's stolen it. Okay, if they find the thief who stole it, then they've got to pay double what they actually stole. So if the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges to see whether he have put his hand unto his neighbour's goods. In other words, if they don't find somebody who stole it and it wasn't the neighbour, then the neighbour will actually take responsibility for that missing goods and be brought to court to actually see and be judged to see whether it was him who actually took the money or not. For all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox or for ass, for sheep, for clothing, or for any manner of lost thing, which another challengeth to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbour. Okay. It's basically stating the same thing. If a man deliver unto his neighbour, as an ass or an ox, or a sheep, or any beast, so keep and it die, or be hurt, or driven away, no man seeing it, then shall an oath of the Lord be between them both, that he have not put his hand unto his neighbour's goods, and the owner of it shall accept thereof, and he shall not make it good. So in other words, if you're looking after someone's animal or livestock or something, and it dies and obviously it gets injured, an oath before God has to be taken that it wasn't him that caused this injury to the animal, and then he won't have to be paying the penalty or pay for the animal or make restitution for it. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. So in other words, if it was stolen from him, then he has to pay for it. If it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for witness, and he shall not make good that which was torn. So in other words, if it's damaged or whatever, then you've got to just bring it and show him, look, it's been damaged and whatever. And then obviously he's foregone the actual penalty for that. And if a man borrow out of his neighbour, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. Okay, so in other words, you'd have to pay a penalty for that. If the owner is not present to witness it. But it says here, the alternative, if the owner is present, be with it, he shall not make it, he would not be paying a penalty. If it be an hired thing, it came for his hire. Okay, so in other words, he borrowed it for his personal use, and the owner was there and witnessed him, and actually saw it, that it really wasn't his fault, then he won't make good for it. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. In other words, if a man is attracted to a young lady and she's not married, but she belongs to obviously her family, and he has intercourse with her, then he's obligated to marry her, really, essentially. And if her father refuses to give her to him, he'll have to pay money according to the dowry of virgins, basically. So it's an expensive thing, and obviously it's not a thing to be taken lightly. So if you are, I think it really just deters away from people just going out and having sex before marriage, it really does encourage the sanctity of marriage. Marriage is an expensive institution. It's a holy institution, and it costs, and people mustn't devalue it. So I think really that's the message here, really. And if a man entice a maid, sorry, it says here, sorry, it says, thou not, sorry, verse 18, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Right. Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. So it's quite clear. I mean, there's nothing really there. In other words, witches will die, should die, it says here. This is the law, this is the covenant. And why? It's because obviously it's not of God, and they're doing a lot of sorcery and usually wickedness outside of God. So that's most probably the reasoning behind that. And whosoever lieth, with the beast shall surely put to death. So doing things with animals, having sex with animals, male humans having sex with animals is certainly not a thing that was acceptable, and it faced the death penalty. And he that sacrifices unto any good he that sacrifices unto any god save unto the Lord, shall he be utterly destroyed. In other words, do not make sacrifices to other gods. Okay, don't make sacrifices to any other god but to the Lord. And thou shalt neither vex a stranger, nor press him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. So in other words, you've got to treat people how you were treated. So that's God's people, is just telling them how they should behave, because they were sojourners in Egypt. So he doesn't want them going out having the same attitude as the Egyptians had with them when they were temporary in there. Temporary, like nomadic travellers or whatever, Ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. So a woman who's lost her husband, or a child that's lost both parents. God definitely didn't want us doing that, afflicting them. Orphans. And if thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. So if an orphan or a widow was to cry out to God, then God would hear their cry, and he's very protective over widows and orphans. And my wrath, he promises, he shall be very angry, shall wax hot, be very angry. And I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows. Okay? And your children fatherless. In other words, you're not having compassion for an orphan or compassion for a widow. That affliction will be on your family. Basically, they're going to face that thing. Same thing as you've not regarded them. Okay, if thou afflict them in any wise, it says here, he'll hear them and wax hot with his anger. So if thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. And I think what that means is, without even looking, is add interest to it. In other words, expect them to pay you back with interest. when they pay the money back. Okay, don't ask for interest on that. Don't even bother with interest on that. And if thou at all take thy neighbour's raiment, that's their clothes, pledge thou shalt deliver it unto him, by that the sun go down. So in other words, promise them that you're giving it back by the end of the day. Why? Because that's their covering. It's the clothes they wear. It's all right during the day, or if you're taking someone's coat or whatever because you need to go somewhere, it's literally something. But remember, they need it as well. For skin, wherein shall he sleep and where will he sleep? I mean, sometimes they sleep with their covering their blankets, they use blankets or whatever. It shall come to pass when he crieth unto me that I will hear, for I am gracious. Okay. And thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. That's interesting, isn't it? It's got little gods. And it's saying that don't revile them. So obviously something about not reviling them. And don't curse the ruler of your people. In other words, don't get upset with people who are governing over you. Okay. Or curse them, basically, but don't do that. Because they're put in place by God to rule over you. Okay, for a reason. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits, and of thy liquors, and firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. So it's talking about first fruits. So you will not delay, and you will make haste to give any first fruits that you have unto the Lord. Okay. Likewise shalt thou do with thine oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it to me. And that pretty much stipulates when you're weaning something, weaning a child. And the only example I can think of that is when Hannah weaned Samuel before giving the baby to the Lord. She weaned him off the breast and gave him to the Lord. Okay. And ye shall be holy men unto me, neither shall ye eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field. Ye shall cast it to the dogs. It says here. So, in other words, you've got to keep yourself holy and pure. And he didn't want people to eat torn flesh, okay, of beasts in the field. Okay, so it could be torn through a fight or whatever that they got into. So give that sort of meat to the dogs, because he wants his people to be holy. What he would accept for himself is just like when he wants a sacrifice, he wants it nice and fresh. He wants us, or wanted them, to be like him, holy, have decent food, not rubbish meat, foolish meat. Give that to something that you give to a beast to a beast, isn't it? Like beasts have that. Okay, moving on now to chapter 23. It says here, thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. Neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after any to wrest judgments. Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. If thou meet mine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him. Thou shalt not wrest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked. And thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise, and perverteth the words of the righteous. Also thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. And 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. "6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thine ass may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make me no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib, for in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labours, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labours out of the field. 3 times in the year all thy males shall appear before the Lord God. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning. The first of the firstfruits of thy Lord thou shalt bring into the house of the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice, and do all that I speak, thou wilt be an enemy unto thine enemies, and an adversary unto thine adversaries. For mine angel shall go before thee, and bring thee in unto the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Thou shalt not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do after their works, but thou shalt utterly overthrow them, and quite break down their images. And ye shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water, and will take sickness away from the midst of thee. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. I will send my fear before thee, and will destroy all the people to whom thou shalt come, and I will make all thine enemies turn their backs unto thee. And I will send hornets before thee, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before thee. I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beast of the field multiply against thee. But little and little I will drive them out from before thee, until thou be increased and inherit the land. And I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the Lord into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. Okay. Let's go through this, or start to go through this. Okay, it says here, thou shalt not raise a false report, but put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. So in other words, don't willingly lie on behalf of someone else to save them. Be honest. Okay, don't rush to do things like that. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. Okay. So do not follow the crowd in doing wickedness. Okay. And also, don't voice or an opinion or assist or support a cause which isn't going towards, which is gonna obviously cause judgment. It says here in verse 3, neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. So in other words, don't crush someone who's poor, who's just sorry, did I get that right? Someone. Well, I'm assuming if the man's poor and you're wealthy, don't use your wealth or your stature to implicate somebody falsely who's may not be of such influence and affluence. So if thou meet thine enemies, ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. So if you see someone's animal, you know it's someone's animal and an ox and it's going astray, you must bring it back to that person. I mean, it might not be an ox or a thing, you know, it might be somebody's daughter or son, if you think about it in terms of that as well. You see them going astray and off course, and they're doing something which doesn't look kind of right. Bring that person or the ox sort of back to its owner, its parent, to say, well, look, you know, that's that person, I saw them just saying, you know, they need assistance, you know, you're going astray here, just go back to your thing, restore them. Let's restore them back to their proper place, their family, or what have you. So it's the responsibility, isn't it? We're in a community. Okay. If thou see the house of him that hath thee lying under his burden, and wouldst forbear to him help him, thou shalt surely help with him. So in other words, if you see an ass which is clearly got a burden, and need some help, then help it. You know. And verse 6, thou shalt not wrest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. Now, it's similar to the first one where it talked about countenance. Although I'm going to say again, I'm going to research that because they're very similar, verse 3 and verse 6. Okay. And I want to be quite clear on that. So thou shalt not wrest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. Okay. And verse 7, keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for not justify the wicked. So was avoid deception, avoid situations which could bring in deception, and certainly don't cause the innocent to be found guilty. In other words, destroy them and they're right. Don't give false testimony against somebody you know is right, and it's for the sake of doing it. And you see countless examples today when people slander people just for the sake of doing it because they're envious, or because of whatever reason they say lies about people and cause them a lot of affliction and pain, which is not necessary. And you saw really that situation when Joseph had Potiphar's wife entice him into her bedroom, and he refused her, and she lied about him and caused him to go to prison. Okay, that's a classic example really there, just because he refused her and rejected her. And thou shalt take no gift for the gift, blindeth the wise, and perverteth the words of the righteous. So in other words, don't take a bribe. And I really seriously, honestly believe that. I really don't believe in bribery and overpaying people for something. I think there's a limit, like you get service charges in restaurants, and you get service charges in hotels. And I think you should pay according to the rules of, say, an hotel or of the restaurant. Outside of that, you're paying excess. It means you want to do something bad or wrong, and that's not necessarily right. That's not right, really, to actually do that, because you could distort the truth and cause somebody to lose what they rightfully deserve because you bribed somebody. And you can get countless examples of where this happens. Just because somebody's more wealthy than someone, and they pay a fee, they get a better treatment. And it's not that they're paying a fee, they're paying something outside of what they should be doing to be put in front, instead of following the protocol of service. And thus the result of that is somebody has more excess and somebody has less than what they should have. Okay, so it's not very fair, is it? Also, thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Okay, that's pretty clear, isn't it? You have someone who's a stranger in your land. You have somebody who is somebody who is probably foreign, and you don't want to press them and persecute them, because you'd be no better off than the oppressors who oppressed you when you were in bondage. But now you're free, just because you're free, and there might be somebody else that's in bondage. Don't oppress that person, help that person, treat them with kindness and respect. Okay, and who knows, they might want to worship your Lord the way you do and love him. And because we are essentially representatives of God, followers and believers. And 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in the field thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let in rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave, beasts of the field shall eat. To like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. That's an interesting thing. Work 6 years and then rest the 7th. That's a cycle, isn't it? A 7-year cycle. To be able to do that, you'd have to accumulate so much wealth in that first 6 years to be able to rest a year. And you see people who do that, and then they go back to work. But the only thing with that, I find, is getting back into the swing of things, knowing what the market is, knowing what things are happening. You're getting in, you're working again to build up your wealth and that. So you work for 6 years, and then you're resting for the 7th. You should be able to rest with an income, with money. You've worked hard for 6 years, and you should have something saved up so you can take a year off, because you built up the wealth to be able to do so, and which is fair, because it's also symbolic of the time when God worked 6 days to build the earth, to create the earth, and rest on the 7th day. So it's all interrelated. And obviously what's left over, you get the poor feeding off of that year, for that year. So, 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thine ass may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. So again, it's pointing back to when God worked for 6 days and then rested on the 7th after he created everything. You do need rest, don't you? Otherwise your work isn't very effective. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. So in other words, don't mention other gods and don't worship them. Don't give much credence to them. And certainly don't voice it. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. So these are the 3 main feasts that he wants us to keep in the year. Wanted them. This is a covenant. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread, which is the Passover. And he tells them what they do. Okay, and the Feast of Harvest, which is the first fruits. Okay, of their labours, which thou hast sown in the field. That's given basically the first portion of whatever it is that they've obtained for their first fruits. the best of the first fruits. Okay. And the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labours out of the field. Okay. So in other words, the ingathering, you're resting, all the labours are leaving at the end of the year, and you're winding down. So he wants that feast to be kept there. And he says quite specifically, thou shalt not, 3 times in the year all thy males shall appear before the Lord. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning. Okay, so leftovers. And first of the first fruits of the land thou shalt bring into the house of the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not sieve a kid on his mother's milk. Okay, it's a goat and its mother's milk. And behold, it says, I send an angel before you to keep you in your way, to guide you and to bring you to the place where I have prepared. So in other words, he gives an instructor, an angel, could be a pastor, could be a preacher, could be a prophet. He sends that it will guide them to a place where he's prepared. It says, beware of him and obey his voice, and don't upset him, because he will not pardon you for your transgression, for his name's in him. So in other words, he believes in God and he believes in instructions, and he's under strict instructions. You can't sway him, and don't upset him, because he's just doing what is the will of God. But if thou shalt indeed, right, we're gonna end there. Okay, so we're ending at verse 21 of chapter 23. I hope you've actually enjoyed this Bible study class. I really, really, really look forward to your comments, and tell me what you really think of the studies and if you're enjoying them. So I look forward to seeing you next time, and I pray you have a blessed week. Okay, take care.